Okay, welcome to Auslearn Chat, everyone, for August. Uh, we had a bit of a break in June, and then last month we had Nick Floro on talking to sort of things e-learning. This month, I'm very happy to say, you can probably see yourselves too, we've got Emma Webber there from Lever Training, or is that right, Emma? Lever Learning and Training?
Lever Transfer of Learning, Con.
Lever Transfer of Learning. I should know.
It's a mouthful, so sorry about that.
And we're going to have also Michelle Ockers too, who was going to join Emma in relation to discussing their experiences, their learnings, their observations from the recent ATD ICE conference, ICE meaning International Conference and Exposition. And also I have had the opportunity to recently just attend the Learning Dev Camp in Utah as well. And now Emma also during the year, early on the year, also attended the 2016 Spring Chief Learning Officer Symposium. So that's another one we can probably touch upon. So the aim of today's chat is to sort of interact and share some of the learnings and some of the things we saw and heard and the people we spoke to, and share some of that stuff with you all and see where it takes us. So Emma, tell us firstly a bit about yourself and about your organisation, and then we're going to start moving to probably talking about the conferences.
Sure. Thanks, Con. Great to be here chatting with you this evening. I'm very excited to be sharing sort of learning and trends from what I discovered in the US. Lever Transfer of Learning, we're a transfer of learning company. So we specialize in helping people change after they've been on learning initiatives. So it's a small niche area to be working in, but one which is really thriving. And I think people are really starting to get the importance of learning transfer and behavioral change as the bigger picture of learning. And some of the trends that came out of the conferences certainly started to show that. So look forward to sort of sharing the ideas from there.
Okay, so let's start with the earlier one. I think the Spring CLO Symposium was one of the earlier ones. And we did see, a number of us did see your beautiful, lovely vlogs you did from that conference. That was a great initiative. I think that's becoming a more and more popular way of sharing. And you know what? I think it's a bit more, for me anyway, it's a bit more effective because you actually get to hear and see the person's emotions while they're talking about some things. And I noticed with you, you were really excited about a couple of things. So let's just touch on that one. One, you know, who is the sort of audience, the background? Because we know Chief Learning Magazine is a major publication. And sort of two, what were some of the key things that you picked up from that symposium?
Yeah, so sure. The Chief Learning Officer Symposium, sort of as the name suggests, it was more sort of CLOs that were there. So it was more of sort of a strategic feel, more of a feel of what's the direction of learning, and less sort of practical hands-on, more what are we seeing happening in the future. And one of the things I loved about the CLO was the way that they really mixed different sort of formats. So they had, they had the keynotes, but they also had a family feuds section, which was three very experienced learning and development professionals playing against three less experienced learning and development professionals.
Wow.
And they were asking questions of the audience and they had great software where the audience actually answered the question. So it kind of came up with a sort of a family feud sort of top answers. So that was a great session that they ran.
That sounds very interesting.
So yeah, lots of fun. They also had really good software where you could actually interact and ask questions via the software that came up against the big screen, much like we're doing with our sort of live chat here. Yep. So rather than that kind of awkward moment at the end of a keynote when is there any questions, you can actually just post your questions as you go. And then you can see the themes coming through on the questions. So that was actually pretty good. But also some really good details. So let me share with you. Yep. I was particularly excited to hear from Accenture. And they had, I'm checking my notes here to make sure I get everyone's name right. So it was Rahul Verma, who had started his career at Accenture in India and had moved up to be the CLO, now operating out of the US. Fascinating the way he spoke about the changes that they're putting in place in Accenture, moving away from their corporate university, with people pulling content towards them rather than them sort of pushing content out. Wow. He also spoke about the power of forums that people were kind of creating for themselves, And he was really talking about the way people were wanting to learn and drive their own learning forward. So that was, I think, a real shift for Accenture, and quite exciting to hear about that. What else can I tell you from CLO? We had one of the keynotes was a guy called Jeffrey Pfeffer. I'm sure people must be familiar with Jeffrey's work. So Jeffrey wrote a book back in I think it was the early 90s, about why people don't change post-learning. So I was really interested to hear what Jeffrey had to say. And his new book is called Leadership BS, and that was the book he was promoting.
What was it called? Leadership
BS.
Oh, as it. Oh, wow.
Which suggests I won't go any further into that.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna check that one out. Leadership BS by Jeffrey. How do you spell his surname, Emma? Do you have his surname?
I think it's PFEFFER. I'm just trying to check that for you.
I'll Google it while you're talking. Yep, I'll Google it and see if I can find the link for it. That's
now,
great,
what was interesting is that Jeffrey was clearly, he was an academic, and he was clearly on the bill to polarize the audience.
Wow.
And it was quite interesting. A couple of facts here. He shared that of 142 countries surveyed that Gallup polled, 13% of employees were engaged, 24% of employees were actively disengaged, everyone else somewhere in the middle.
Wow.
He also shared that in a DDI survey, a third of people surveyed out of 1,300 did not find their manager effective. And that a CCL, Centre for Creative Leadership survey, recently found that 50% of all leaders and managers are currently ineffective in their role.
Wow.
And so Jeffrey, bless him, just stood up and said, look, we're in a terrible mess.
Yes, a little bit.
Our leadership development programs aren't working. And he really challenged the capability of people working in the leadership field.
And on that one, Emma, just have a bit of a side chat. I noticed that we do spend a lot on leadership development, and we still see it as being a major issue. And for someone like Jeffrey Pfeffer to sort of bring that up, obviously, one, he's observing something, and two, we're not getting much change happening. And I suppose with your work in the transfer of learning, what are some of the areas that, leadership development needs to change or do differently, you think?
Well, I think, God, it's as simple as really starting to get our head around transfer and really focusing on transfer.
Yep. True.
What I see is that people are going to a lot more modular leadership programs.
Yep.
So people are moving away from the kind of the 1 week off site and moving to modular. But even as they're moving to modular, they are not solving the problem of learning transfer.
Yep.
And I see that people are issuing things like a leadership challenge or a leadership project.
Yep. Yeah.
What I really think we've got to do is get people changing their leadership behaviors onto their day-to-day job. We don't want it to stay with a challenge or to stay with a project. We need them to change as a leader on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
And so it's accountability, it's reflection, it's follow-through. That's what's going to make the difference. But the thing for me about Jeffrey's approach, so he's clearly kind of outing that there's a problem within leadership, but he really didn't say how he felt we were going to solve it.
Oh.
Apart from the fact that he wrote a book about learning transfer back in the 90s. And I think to myself, well, you should have just actually stayed with that, Jeffrey, because that's got to be the bottom line.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And he spoke about a lot of people in leadership development being in it just to entertain leaders. But that is not my experience at all. Does he really think he was really challenging that, we send people on leadership training to be entertained? I don't know anyone that does that.
Yeah, for him to say that, would he not be having some evidence behind him? But for him to say that, or if not some raw data, at least some anecdotal evidence or information, or what would we be saying? Was he there to? You said before he was there to ignite the crowd. Was there to stir up the crowd? Is that right?
I think he was there to be controversial.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the Americans in the audience absolutely loved him.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah, they love the controversy. That's right. Okay, well, that's a good one. So that's a good insight there on this Jeffrey Pfeffer. I'll put a link there to his book.
Okay.
Not that he needs any more sales, but I think from there people can then jump around and see and read more about him if they wanted to. Okay, that's a good one. So there's a couple of good sessions. There was anything else that stood out from the symposium for you?
There was a speaker called Gretchen Rubin talking about habits, better than before, how people change habits. So from my perspective in learning transfer, I think the way people change and talking about habits is an important part of learning, and probably something that will come to the fore even more. And I've been enjoying her book, so that's been great.
Good.
And Brian Robertson spoke from Holacracy, talking about sort of business structures of the future. So how organizational design will start to change. So that was a really interesting session. And again, this was sort of more strategy into the future rather than the kind of practical hands-on what's actually happening today, perhaps in learning. And also really interesting at the CLO forum to get comparisons between what startups are doing and what's actually happening at a more enterprise level organization.
Yep. So do you find something at the CLO forum, Emma, for someone like yourself, being at the strategic level is probably more suitable as a conference, as a gathering, than rather something a more practical one? Is that what you're finding in more? I suppose it's an obvious question, but is it something that's where you're getting a lot more learning, understanding, or is it a different conference, probably more suited to what you want to achieve out of for your development purposes?
One of the things I liked was because it was a smaller conference.
Okay.
So I would guess between 300 and 500 people, or maybe 500 to 800. Numbers is not my strength, but it was certainly a smaller, more intimate conference where you actually, over the 3 days, you connected with people once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. You know, you'd see them in the break or you'd see them in different sessions.
Yep.
When you're at one of the larger conferences like ATD, where they've got, you know, near on 11,000 people there, you can meet someone one session, have a really amazing conversation, but you never see them again, apart from, you know, when you follow up. So you don't actually kind of build those relationships and those connections just because there's so much going on. So I actually enjoyed the chance to get to know a smaller number of people.
So then going back to the broader perspective on conferences, is networking one of the key things you enjoy about a conference?
Yes. I love a good conversation.
I agree. I think networking, and sometimes the attitude I take with conferences is I rather, instead of sort of looking at who's speaking, don't get me wrong, it's important, but I also like to see the sort of the caliber or who the type of people that the conference is focusing on as in relation to an audience. Because I think it's important to sort of have an idea about the type of people that conference is focusing on or the type of audience it's looking to tap into who will be present and gathered there. So that's a very important part, because I think conferences can be, very much dull and boring, and they can also be very interactive and engaging. So it really depends. And I think the one I went to, the Learning Dev Camp, was also of a very similar size. Emma, I think it was from memory, I'm not great at numbers too, but about 300 to 400 people. So it was a very intimate type of conference. And again, a lot of people already knew each other from the interactions, but also got to know each other a lot better during the conference over those 3 days.
Yeah. And I'll definitely be heading back to CLO.
Okay.
So I will be going again, but it is quite a different conference. I think Bruno's just put a note in the chat about holacracy and how that can scale. And Bruno, it was interesting that there wasn't a lot of practical examples on how that can scale that was shared. It was a lot about the actual software, and I think people were hoping it was going to go more into the work of Frederic Laloux's Reinventing Organizations and kind of the ethics and values behind it. So yeah, Bruno, that wasn't covered off, so nothing to add. Sorry.
Okay, and hopefully here we go. Software. I'm curious. Any names?
Well, it was actually the Holacracy branded software that Brian Robertson was talking about. So if you look at his website, that's the one that he was focusing on.
So Bruno, if you can Google and you find the link and you just paste it in there for us, it'll be great. Okay, so that's so you definitely going back to the CLO Symposium then, Emma, as a speaker or even as a delegate, or doesn't matter for you?
We'll have to see, won't we? certainly be trying to get there as a speaker. So
it'd be good. Okay, it'd be great. Yeah. So obviously, with that sort of intimacy in that conference, you think something you would like to share would be very relevant to that sort of group. Is that what you're heading towards?
What was interesting is that at the ATD conference, there were 12 sessions this time on learning transfer.
Wow.
And I've been there, I think 5 out of the last 6 years or 4 out of the last 5 years. And that is a real increase. I think the first year I went, there were sort of 2 or 3 sessions. So,
Yep.
But what was interesting, it was hardly mentioned at CLO.
Yes.
And so I spoke to people, in the breaks and said, well, why is it not being talked about? Is it that it's handled at a strategic level and blah, blah, blah? And I just don't think it's hit that agenda yet. And so people were really interested to find out more. And I certainly spoke with Mike Prokovic, who is the chair of the conference, about saying, look, this has got to be on the agenda for next year.
Good.
So we'll see how much of an influence I had there, Connor.
No, I'm sure you would. I'm sure you did, Dave. I think we're looking forward to seeing your name on that brochure when it comes out.
Thank you.
What I did discover, they made the videos available, and obviously only for a limited time, but there is a good link. I'll just copy and paste into the blab. It's a bit of a recap. So it's the recap of the symposium. It's pretty good one. So I thought people might get a bit of a look at that and get a bit of understanding of what happened. They had, like I said, they had all the videos there for a limited time, and then they took them down. And by the way, they were free. They weren't pay per view or anything. So that was a really good way they do it. And I do watch the symposium quite a bit. I've watched those videos and I really enjoy it. Probably another one of those that are on my bucket list too, Emma, so I didn't know. Okay, so the next one I'm thinking chronologically would have been the ATD ICE event in Colorado. Is that right?
Yep.
Tell us what I suppose Emma too was there. Maybe you can start off with what you guys spoke about, and maybe then touch on some of the other things you saw and observed.
So Michelle and I were presenting a case study that we had put together with Michelle and her team at CCA. And we really sort of shared the story, the kind of the highs and lows of the journey, the outcomes, the reporting, and just really kind of gave a taster of what is it like when you start to shift your focus onto learning transfer? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And what we learned in the process. So it was a really great to be presenting with Michelle. I know she was keen to kind of come and share again this evening. But we had a session. The session was videoed, but as we spoke, it's all kind of locked videos to attendees only.
Yep.
What's interesting, and this is a tip for people that are going over there next year, there's so much choice that a lot of time, if a session is being videoed, people won't attend it. And the reason they won't attend is because they can watch it on the video.
Exactly.
And then there's a lot of sessions that actually aren't videoed. So it's kind of a...
So you know up from the schedule which ones are videoed or not?
Yes.
So
in some ways it was very flattering that we were being videoed. And in other ways it's like, you know what? If we're live, people are going to make more of an effort to see. But having said that, one of the things that I really find is that people love an Australian perspective, and people really, there was an appetite for learning transfer at the conference. Yeah. And I certainly went to most of the learning transfer sessions and sort of saw people going from one to another to actually, collect their information and really start to gather a picture around that. So, it was a great conference to be part of. Very lucky to be presenting there.
Okay, that's interesting because I think learning transfer and that sort of whole gambit, that area we spoke before, I think I'm surprised like you why I didn't make something like the CLO Symposium, but then it's good to see that there's 12 sessions at ATD. But having said that, do they do any evaluation or post-session sort of feedback for you guys to be able to tap into in relation to who's enjoyed the session, who hasn't, what were some of the key learnings that took away? Do you get access to that sort of information?
Yeah, we did. We had feedback from our session, and some great feedback. We actually challenged people in the session. One of the things I love to do when I'm presenting, Con, is actually get people into action. So we did an interactive commitments piece where people buddied up in the audience and actually had follow-up calls after that with each other. And we had some feedback that, people have been having their conversations and making progress. So again, that was a really good piece to be involved in.
Just saw a message there, Matt's not able to hear us, and I've just told him to log out, log back in again. I usually find that works. Bruno, can you hear us? If you can hear us, can you type yes? At least we know someone's hearing us. Hopefully. Yep. Okay. So Matt, if you just want to, well, you can't hear me say it, so hopefully he logs back and logs out, logs back in. It'd be great. So what about in general about the ATD ICE? I mean, you talked about 12 sessions for learning transfer. What were some of the key major themes that were hitting you in the face when you sort of walked around and started listening to some of these sessions?
Well, so learning transfer was one of the big trends. The other trend is that there were 19 sessions on ROI measurement and evaluation.
Wow.
And again, ROI measurement evaluation has been important every year that I've been at the ATD conference. But this year, I felt there were even more people talking about it, and probably a bit of a broader cross-section talking about learning and evaluation. One of the ones which was a repeat from the previous year because it was so popular, and Con, I think we've got the link to this, was Art Cohn, A-R-T, then K-O-H-N. And Art was talking about work that he had been focusing on, and he was looking at learning transfer to help educate people with AIDS in Africa. There was a big initiative that they were involved in then, and very much kind of online learning transfer Art was looking at. So he's certainly kind of interesting to be seeing what's happening there. And for the within measurement, we had Jack and Patty Phillips presenting, of course, from the ROI Institute. We also had Metrics That Matters, Skillytics, Point Performance. So some really kind of a lot going on and a lot talking about ROI and measurement. However, I was chatting to a colleague of mine who had also been at the conference. Unfortunately couldn't join us this evening, but he sensed that a lot of people were talking about measurement and evaluation, but still not following through on it very well.
And that's the issue, I suppose, even with the transfer of learning too, Emma, that they talk there's a lot of talk about it in the industry. And I'm finding the same, that we talk about the impact, we talk about the transfer of learning, but for whatever reason, organisations either are still fearful of it, or L&D is still struggling to do it and struggling to put into place. And is it the kind of sense you felt also there was a lot of talk about it, but people still struggling with the practical approach to implementing it?
I think people are still really comfortable working on what they're already good at.
Yeah, which is LMS data.
Yeah, LMS data, but also, tweaking their workshop design and just getting it slightly better, taking it to the next level. Whereas to actually really start a learning transfer or measurement initiative, it was kind of, I think, taking people out of their comfort zone. I certainly think, we classic see, if we look at the classic before, during and after of learning transfer, we're still getting people trying to make a difference in learning transfer through the before and the during. And really your biggest bang for your buck is what happens afterwards.
And I recall Carol Lehman from Axonify. So I was doing a webinar recently, it was about a month ago, where she used the word that learning is still fearful of doing measurement for whatever reason, whether it's going to uncover some things they don't want to know, or they don't even know how to do it, or they don't know how to approach it. But this fear around measurement, around transfer of learning, around evaluation, is something that she was urging L&D practitioners to just sort of put it aside and just embrace and just, go into it and start doing it, because some were not even doing it full stop. They were just, maybe the level 1, level 2, weren't going to those next levels. If we use the Kirkpatrick's acronym, or we use any other aspect of evaluation, just weren't going right through to the end. So interesting that, because when you say there's 19 sessions and there was also another 12 on transfer, that's we're talking about over 30 sessions there on just that sort of what I would call the broad area of impact and trying to get some measurement on learning. So obviously it's a flavour of the month. Will we say that?
I think there certainly was a trend, but Con, I think there were over 400 sessions all up, or something similar. We'd have to really track down the numbers.
So that's about just under 10% of the sessions.
Yeah.
On that key area. So that's still indicative. I mean, given there's so many areas, and I'm sure they would have had a lot of practical sessions. They would have had a lot of whether it be e-learning or other practical sessions. That's still pretty high amount. So that's good insight, Emma. That's a really good insight.
Oh, Con, I think it was out for about 400 sessions.
Oh,
not 100, 400. So we'd have to double. There were hundreds of sessions to choose from.
Wow.
Really, it was In fact, I wonder if anyone has the facts and figures to hand. I'm just checking here. I know I said to Jess when we were putting our webinar together, can we work out how many sessions there were? And she said, well, short of counting them, Emma, probably not.
I'm just on the ATD side, and it said 300 plus sessions, it says.
So, okay, 300 plus then.
400 plus speakers, 4 days, 10,000 plus attendees.
Yeah. Okay, good. Con, you're just a man with the facts at your fingers. So
no, just on the side.
I'm glad you're there on that.
What I did was, because I think it's also I'll put a link in there to the YouTube channel. They do a recap every day, and ATD TV does a recap every day, which I think is good for people to watch, because they interview people on the floor and they actually talk to certain people. So there's a link there to the ATD TV channel, and they've got a conference wrap up. They've got one for Sunday, one for Monday, one for Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth. So well worth people checking out those videos and listen to some snippets. They run about, there's a couple of them about 7-8 minutes, but most of them run about 2 to 4 minutes. So they're pretty good. They're good to access those. And also, just in general, you can access the ATD ICE. I'm just going to copy the link across. Sorry, that's just the general link to their site, where you can actually see some key topics, and that's where I've got the stats about 10,000 attendees and so forth. And they've got their, register for 2017 in Georgia World Congress Center. So there you are, Emma. Now we know where you're going.
Yes.
The Georgia World Congress Center.
So one of the key things, I think, when you're visiting a conference like ATD is to get your strategy right.
Yeah.
And you've either got the strategy of focusing niche, which I usually go either transfer or evaluation, or you can have a broad strategy when you say, you know what, I'll do one transfer session, one micro learning, one evaluation, and really kind of try and pull all your threads together. The other thing I find, it's really important to have time when you actually don't attend sessions, because otherwise you actually just get completely overwhelmed with
so you actually take a break, you're saying. Take a break not to attend the session.
Break. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, just you're bamboozled, don't you? Just session after session.
And because I actually get much more from having downtime, reflect, make sure what I have learned is useful to me, rather than just getting more and more content.
Is it the time you spend walking the floor of the exhibition too, just sort of seeing what's around, talk to some vendors?
Yeah. And they also have planned time where you can go to the exhibition, but it's always really nice to go to the exhibition in the quiet times as well. And I really enjoy setting up. Now I've been a few times, I'll set up meetings with people that I've met previous years that I don't actually get a chance to, connect with. I only get a chance to connect with them online or on Twitter. So actually spend time sat talking to people. Because
do they have facilities there to do that? Do they have a lot of little meeting areas you can book?
They have what they call the Global Village.
Okay.
And so anyone that's an international visitor can just go and find a seat, and usually that's a really good meeting place. So you can actually just say to people, look, I'll meet you at the Global Village. And we kind of, you can also create a bit of a base there so people go back to that. We also, if there's an Australian contingent, try and have at least one meetup with the Australian group, and then there's an international reception, which again, the Australian group always gets together and, chance to meet with the other international delegates as well.
That's great. That sounds like a good setup overall. That's a really good setup. That's good. So was there anything else from the ATD, Emma, that you'd like to share with us?
I just guess the real big things at the ATD is when they have the keynoters, they're the world-class keynoters. So they had Brené Brown speaking.
Wow.
They had Simon Sinek speaking. They had, and Jeremy Gutsche, who is from Trent.
What was Simon? What we all know here about Simon Sinek. What was he like? Is he as good as a speaker as what he is on those YouTubes and those videos?
Yes.
Wow.
He was. Brené Brown was my absolute favorite.
Okay.
If I really had to pick between the two of them. Simon was talking about, building trust and creating safety within organizations. And he was talking a lot about the kind of the brain chemistry and how people respond to threats, and and it was all about leadership. It was all about why eaters eat last, why some teams come together and others don't.
Yep. Okay.
But a very powerful session. The beautiful thing about Brené Brown, whether it's just that I really, really love her work, she used to work within learning. So she started out as a trainer at AT&T. in Houston and kind of shared that with the audience. She wasn't talking so much about the power of vulnerability, which most people will know from her major work, but she was talking about one of her lovely phrases was that if we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write the ending. So it was very much about owning your own story and kind of writing the own ending from that. Okay. So I just loved her work, and she was a very powerful presenter.
That's good. That's good. Sounds like made an impact on you. If she was better than Simon, it must have made a big impact. Because with Simon, like I said, just what I've seen of him, he comes across very powerful, very strong, and very, very clear, and he's not too hard to understand in what he's talking about. So I like watching Simon. So it's good, yeah. So they get those really key speakers, don't they? And they put them on a main stage. And I think Tony Bingham also do the introduction? I hear he's a very good speaker too. He's very good on his feet. And was it the last conference where they announced the change of the name from ATD to TD, and he did a big launch. I remember that.
Yeah. And they have other members of the ATD exec committees present before the keynote speakers. And actually, they're always really interesting presentations because they're sharing things about the kind of the state of the industry or the state of the profession.
Yep.
And usually sharing research and yeah, really, really powerful.
So you've been a member of ATD or ACD for a while, Emma?
I think 5 years.
Yeah, about me the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
About the same. Yeah, I've come across. I really like. I think I know it's in American dollars and all that, but for value for money, I think the access to the magazines and the archives and the numerous other benefits you get, I think it's pretty good value for money. Not that we're getting a kickback, but I really enjoy my ATD membership. I think it's great value for money. So after that one, was it the AOTD? Was AOTD probably earlier than that, wasn't it? AOTD earlier than ATD from memory? I think it was.
I think we just lost Con for a second, and he was just starting to speak about the AITD.
Hello?
Yes, I think that was a couple of weeks before the ATD.
Testing.
Bruno, are you still here in chat box? And just lost, not me. So the AITD, Australian Institute of Training and Development, great conference to be involved in. I mean, I'm sure Con will. Backup planning. Yes, so I design training. I think that's Matthew. So Matthew, I know that you were at the conference as well. So it was a really great event, a really good vibe. We had and Donald did 2 keynotes, one speaking about the history of learning and how learning has changed over the last 2,500 years. And basically with the upshot being we're actually in learning, we're quite slow learners. And that there's been more change in recent years than the previous 2,000. So really interesting to hear from Donald. And for those that know Donald, his passion is around final keynote of the conference was around artificial intelligence and how that will start to play into learning.
Can you hear me now?
It'll be interesting to have heard Donald's view on what's happening with Pokemon Go and how that will impact learning. But obviously we're a few weeks ahead of that trend. Does anyone got a comment that they want to put in chat that was actually at the conference, or maybe who would like to? I don't know if I can invite you into an open seat. I'm seeing an open seat here. Happy for someone to step forward on chat if that's useful. Co-host, I probably can bring someone into an open seat.
Hello, can you hear me now? Nope.
So maybe I need to bring Con back in. Guys, if you can just bear with me a moment, I will try and Con, I'm wondering, Con and I were laughing earlier about my my technology prowess. He really had to teach me,
Can you
talk
hear
me
me?
through how to how
Hello?
oh Con
Hello?
hi
Oh, what happened there? Hello?
Con, I've got a bad echo this end.
Am I okay now? Oh, I'll hang up.
Okay, guys, my audio has been. I've now got a problem with my audio. Does some okay. Still echoing my end. So it sounding really futuristic. Bruno, as you suggest, I can't think this is working.
So we're just talking a little bit about AITD, and you were asking people if they'd also attended to join on. So can we just quickly cover again AITD, Emma? So what was your main highlight from that?
So we were just touching on Donald Clark, who did the 2 keynotes about the change within learning over the past 2,000 years and how much we've had more change in the last 20 years than the previous 2,000. And we also had Donald, Plan B Learning. Yep, great link. Thanks for that, Con. Talking about how technology is shaping the future and AI and all sort of interesting issues around that.
And Donald plays around his Oculus Rift, doesn't he? He was really good. He does a good job with that. I like that. And because he came down to the fishbowl with us in Melbourne, and we all had a go on it. So what I liked about Donald, and I've heard him speak a couple of times in there, maybe you might want to, he doesn't mince words, and he doesn't really go for too much for what I call, in the pardon the word, the fads and all those shiny things, unless he's really done some research or there's some evidence base around it. Is it what you find with Donald Clark? I find he's very much a deep thinker.
I think he is a deep thinker. I think he's a real researcher.
Yeah.
What was interesting, though, is that, for example, where he challenged some of the thinking around, evaluation and measurement, what he was challenging on was completely different to my understanding of evaluation and measurement. So I was actually left thinking, That's really interesting because actually, if you really looked at level one, so really kind of degrading level one and smile sheets, which yes can be done very, very badly, but there's also certain questions you can ask that make them really useful. And if you don't ask some of those questions, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So I was slightly challenged in the area where I've done some research and some knowledge to say, well, actually, how well is that research? Because you've not really understood.
Yep. And is it Dr. Will Thalmeyer has done some work on that too, hasn't he?
Well, I am meeting with Will at 7:30 tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow. Well done.
Virtually, of course.
Yes, well done. No, he's I haven't caught up with some of his latest, and I know he's got a book out which I've got to get access to and buy. But have you read his book or acquired his book?
So I went to his session at ATD. And I have yet to read his full book, which I probably won't get time before 7:30 tomorrow morning. But we're looking to do some work together, and we're hoping to present together at ATD next year. But certainly he's going to be working with us, helping us refine our evaluation process at Lever.
Good.
His work is awesome, and he's so thorough.
Yes,
So
really, what I like about Dr. Will is he myth busts a lot. So especially the more recent one. Again, I haven't caught up with the details. I just saw the snippet about neuroscience, and he's done a lot of research on the neuroscience of learning and that sort of stuff. But you're right, Emma. He's very thorough. He's very efficient. He's also, again, a great researcher, and he's got the ability to get people to contribute to his research, either via case studies or via information or anecdotal evidence, whatever the case may be. He just gets people who are willing to contribute to his studies and to his writings and all those things. Yeah, so he's really good.
Yeah. And that's why I've said to him, we must work together, because I could really do with his research help on learning transfer. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, it'd be amazing. Transfer. That'd be great. Well done. Good luck. And I hope it all comes off for you. It's be really good because Dr. Will's one recognised and also does some great work. So it'd be really good. Okay, so that was AITD. I'll talk a bit about what I went to the Learning Dev Camp, which was the one in Utah. And look, for me, it was just that's the little guide. For me, it was a bit of an experience. Really privileged to be able to go to a US conference. I've been asked to, after doing the proposal, been asked to present. My session was around the embedding social learning and organization, which was just talking about my experience and my journey and how I did certain things in my previous corporate life with the tax office. The conference overall, like I said, about 300-400 people, mainly hands-on, mainly e-learning sort of developers. We had a good session on XAPI and how to write the XAPI statements, and that was a really enlightening session for someone like myself who was not into or didn't have much awareness of XAPI and how to write a statement and how that is captured, and how that's captured by the technology to bring into a learning record store. And I'm still struggling to understand the more intimate details around how the technology works. Also, a good friend of mine, AJ Pangakar, went to his session on getting buy-in for your learning. AJ has written a couple of books and actually brought his book. I just can't find it here. Hold on, I'll see if I can get it. So I should have been more prepared here, shouldn't I? So AJ wrote a really good book, and he focuses on the training balance scorecard. And this book has been even endorsed by Dr. Norton, so the balance scorecard person. So AJ does a very good session on getting buy-in, and I want to do some work with AJ going forward because I really like his writing, I like his thinking, and being an accountant and sort of a financial person coming from that perspective, he's able to bring that operational perspective, and when he talks business, and he also brings that perspective about what business is looking for from a learning function, from not a cost center perspective, but also more importantly, what they focus on, what they really care about. So a really good book, which I'm starting to read, and hopefully I'll get through it very soon and have a chat to AJ. Jason Bickle is the convener of the Learning Dev Camp, and he does a few sessions around how to design your learning, how to do your storyboards, how to do the scripts, and so forth. Nick Floro, I met there. Nick was very good on also on e-learning. He's head of Silworks. He did a great session on the latest tools, latest apps that e-learning developers can use. And also Joe Ganchi is another well-renowned e-learning developer, works mainly with Articulate, I think, and also with Adobe Captivate in those two areas. And he also does, he did a good session again on how to take that software to the next level. So in relation to how to develop e-learning, and some of the stuff, because I'm not an e-learning developer, didn't interest me as much. So I missed those sessions and went to other sessions. Overall, it's a more intimate conference. It is focused on that sort of hands-on developer, although I've been trying to influence them and trying to talk to Jason, try to get a strategic perspective to it. Next year, we might have a one day on strategic L&D where maybe people that are interested in that sort of area can come along, and the second day can be more hands-on. What they do have what they call bring your mobile, bring your own device, and they actually do, hack sessions and get together and just develop some e-learning on the go. One thing about Jason, he gets great sponsors and he always has magnificent giveaways at his conference, and I think that's what people like about it, that they're going to interact, they're going to engage, but also he's able to get some great sponsors to his conference and therefore be able to have some great giveaways. For example, he was giving away a couple of those Amazon Echoes, it gave away 2 Microsoft Surface Pros, and being a smaller conference is able to do that a lot more effectively, as opposed to a bigger conference. So overall, I think it was a great experience for me. I'm looking to use that experience to catapult onto other speaking arrangements, and so far very honoured and privileged that I got the chance to go to ATD TK in Vegas in January, which is going to be probably for me the next stepping stone in my speaking journey. Let's put it that way. So overall not bad.
And Con, were there many international people at the Learn, or was it mainly American audience?
Mainly American. We had a couple of people from the UK, and that was about it. So there was another group on the UK. The key speakers were Ruth Clark, Dr. Ruth Clark, and also JD Dillon. JD Dillon did a very good session where he talked about the key areas. He talked about the 10 principles that a learning practitioner needs to focus on, and he's put it on. If you look JD Dillon on SlideShare, his presentation is on SlideShare. You can get access to that. And one of the highlights for me was, of course, meeting JD Dillon, who's someone I follow and read a lot of his writing. He blogs. I know where JD finds the time, but he just blogs so much. He's just an amazing writer, an amazing person, and so easy to talk to and so relaxed when you're chatting to him about certain things. I even managed to do a video with him, a bit of a video which I'm hoping to edit and place on one of the websites that I'm associated with to get some of JD's views out there for people to see. So that was it.
And Con, I think that's one of the things I love about attending conferences. The speakers are often very generous with sharing their information, having a chat, connecting with people. So I, for me, that's one of the highlights and one of the reasons for going.
And you're so true, Emma. I find, and I always say, I don't know if it's, I don't go to other finance sort of conferences or other ones, but I find with the L&D type of conferences I go to, people are just so open to sharing. And you say, oh, can I just do a quick video chat with you, or can we just have a coffee for 15 minutes? They're amazing. And JD did it, and I had Nick Floro came on last Auslearn for us. He was really okay. AJ Pangakar's done an Auslearn for me. We've had so many great people, and Carl Cap. So I find that we have a lot of sharing and caring. Again, the only thing I'd say, and I'm not putting a damper on it, is that I just think we do a lot of talking and not enough doing, especially things like whether it be the transfer of learning, whether it be about the alignment with business, the performance consultancy approach. I think there's a lot of chatter about it, and there's a lot of reports come out saying that we need to do better in that. I think we just somehow rather we're just slowly just dragging our feet getting there, but we don't do it as rapidly as maybe I was hoping, and maybe I'm expecting too much. I don't know. That's what I'm finding.
I think this kind of loops us a little back round, Con, to where we started at the CLO forum, because what the trend or the certainly the discussion was around there is that startup organizations are able to do it and are able to be much more flexible, to be much more sort of performance consulting approach and really staying close to what are the needs of the organization. And there was someone was sharing about, the difference between doing a cultural survey every month, doing a cultural survey every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And that just kind of, shows the difference between the size and the scale of some of the enterprise organizations and how it's hard to move quickly when you're that size.
It is. And I understand there's cultural, there's behavioural issues you've got to overcome. So there is a bit of a challenge there. But I find that, we come to some of these conferences and there's a lot of people there nodding their heads, and yes, they understand that. then you speak to them privately out of the session. I think, well, you know what, I've got a boss, or I've got a manager, I've got a leader who just won't support me. For example, I was in a had in bed social learning, and another guy came up to me from the IRS. I was the equivalent of the tax office, and he goes, "Kind of been there where you've been. I understand what you went through, and because I talked a lot about my challenges and what I had to overcome." And he goes, "But I'm still, he goes, give me some suggestions." So we had a bit of a chat about what strategies you might be able to use. But I sympathise, I can empathise with it, because that's what I went through in relation to that sort of environment. So whether it's the IRS in the US or whether it's the tax office here in Australia, at the end of the day, we've all got the similar sort of, I think, cultures embedded in those organisations, because they are public service. They are very much focused on security. They're very much focused on protection of data, and therefore trying to get some of these innovative and creative things happening takes a bit more of a challenge. It's a bit more of a push and a bit more influence required. So yeah, so we had a good chat. I'll touch base with him in a couple of months and see how he's going, because he really enjoyed the conversation, but he was also keen to get something happening, but having in mind that there was a lot of challenges ahead of him. So that was my little surge on into the conference and the overseas conference. So like I said, it was good. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. Being a small, intimate conference, I think gave me a bit of the confidence to sort of go and speak, and gave me the opportunity to sort of feel a bit more relaxed. But having said that, I'm looking forward to the big one, Emma. So I'm looking forward to the big one in Vegas, and hopefully one day get to go on to the ATD one or one of the other ones. That'd be really good.
Well, we'll be following on the back channel.
Yes, we'll be following.
I won't be at ATD Tech in Vegas, but I'll be following on the back channel. So look forward to hearing how you go on that.
Yeah, I'll try to do as much as I can. Now, what I was going to do is going to post a couple of other links. Emma, there was one here that you did recently. You did actually a great webinar on your learnings from that conference, which I'll just post the link here. There it is there. For those people who want to check out that one, Emma did a really good webinar on the trends based on, I think it was mainly the ATD conference from memory that you were focusing on.
Yeah, and just what I'd learned kind of in my 2 US trips and the AITD, so just kind of synthesized ideas and trends.
Yeah, so there's that link to that, so people can check that out. Also, I put a link earlier on to Lever Learning. Let's get that one up there again, so people can check out Lever Learning.
Transferoflearning.com.
There we are. Sorry, I've got it wrong again, haven't I?
No worries.
Jeez, I'll get there. Don't worry, I'll get there. Sorry, my apologies. So we put it there. The Transfer of Learning. But why I got confused is there was one other link I wanted to put up there, which was, of course, from that same site, people can get access to your book, which I see you've got in the background there.
Yes, I have indeed. So people can download a free chapter.
Can you just tell us quickly about the book and what made you write that book and what you are hoping people get out of it?
Do you know what? It was a 4-year project, Con. So it wasn't an overnight at all.
4 years.
Yeah.
Jeez, wait, not disrespectful. Was it because you did a lot of research or thinking about it? What was the process there?
Yeah. And I think it really helps you kind of shape your methodology and get really, really clear on what you're doing and how and the why. And it was a great process and a great project to go through. With the benefit of hindsight, probably could have done it in 2. I actually changed publisher partway through, so it's published by Kogan Press, which is a UK-US Kogan Page, which is a UK-US publisher. It's one of those things, you write a book, you never know what's going to happen to it. I'm really encouraged that I get emails from people that say, this is their go-to learning and development resource, and it's made a really big difference to them. So, when I get emails like that, I think, it was worth 4 years.
Is there another one in you think?
So the second book is here, Con.
Oh, there is. There you are. Geez, what a nice segue that is.
This one was actually published. It was launched at the ATD in the US. We haven't done a big launch here in Australia yet. Co-written with Jack and Patty Phillips. Yeah. And it's about the combination of the ROI methodology and the turning learning into action methodology, and how we can use both of those for change. Because as much as we have problems getting people to change after learning, actually getting people to change on change projects, another big issue. So I do think
people can get those books from your site, Emma?
So they can get them from the site, but in Australia, the best place to get them is Footprints.
Okay.
but I think if you get in touch with us, we can maybe get you a discount link. But we don't actually sell. We sell via our distributor, which is Footprints Press.
Yep.
But do reach out to us. Jess can help you with those details. And of course, around the world, Amazon is a great place to pick up the books.
And of course, we're talking conferences. I'll just let people know about conferences that are coming up that they might be interested in, since we're talking conferences. So we have, first of all, we have the Work 2.0, the Learning at Work conference, which is in October. And also then we have LearnX. I don't know if you're going to any of these. Emma, you planning to go to any of these?
I'm at LearnX.
Good.
Is that October 16th, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, the one. Yeah, LearnX is first. No, 18th.
Okay.
And then the future of learning, or the Work 2.0, the Learning at Work one is the week after.
Okay, so I'm not sure yet about Learning at Work, but definitely going to be at LearnX on the 18th.
That's it. That's in Melbourne. So we'll see you there. I'm there too. So we'll definitely see you there.
Perfect.
There's also another one coming up, which I'm associated with, which is still in the planning phase, which is the ILP one, what we call the hybrid conference that's happening, the Future of Learning one. So you can register your interest there and get more information.
It'd be great to get to that one. So
yes, that's going to be a bit of a hybrid one. We're going to see how we go. We're kind of doing a lot of planning and discussion about how we want to set that up. But we're looking at getting some live streams coming in from US, UK, and also having various hubs around the country, sites where people can do that, interacting, that networking, but also getting that sort of live streamed. That way, minimise the cost for those speakers, but also minimise the cost for people having to travel to a central site. A lot of work being done that, so we'll see how that pans out. So was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we close, Emma?
No, just really great to be connecting with people today. And I would really encourage people to get out to conferences where you can, because even just taking a day away from your office and your desk, getting a fresh perspective, fresh ideas, I find it really valuable. And I'm sure other people do when they manage to get out, even if it's our local conferences, some real great quality here as well.
That's right. Even those meetups are really good and handy where you just get a chance to talk. Okay, folks, we've just gone on to 9 o'clock. So thanks very much for your time. Thank you, Emma. Really appreciate you coming online. Sorry about the technical glitches we had halfway through, but we got through that. We're learning. So hopefully you enjoyed the experience. And thank you, everyone. And we'll be back with Auslearn next month with another guest that we'll promote during the course of the next couple of weeks. So thank you, Emma, once again. Please access those links so we can get in touch with Emma, her books, and also the webinar she did on the recent conferences she's been to. And until next month, thank you, everyone. We'll see you all again.
Cheers.